Good morning, peeps. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you are having a very good, experience before it's time to go to work, or if you're already at work, or school, or whatever. I hope that everything is all well with you. I appreciate you watching my live streams or even my playbacks. I appreciate that. Um, I have new uploads that I'm posting. So if you've been watching my channel for a number of years, in like 2014, um, or 2015, something like that, I posted this video about Atlanta's sexual predator. And it ended up being a series of videos after that about this same guy. And it was about this guy in Atlanta who was going around pretending that he was single. And he would start like these relationships with these women and then end up being engaged to these women. And come to find out, he was already married and had like 5+ children, almost 12 children, from what I believe now. And he was inside of the swingers lifestyle, and he was, just very, very open with his sexuality, and he was promiscuous. He was just going around Atlanta being like this guy who was just being a predator towards these women because he was manipulating a specific type of woman. He wasn't going after women who were inside of the same lifestyle he was, or women who were promiscuous themselves. He would go after women who weren't necessarily looking for a partner that was inside of the swingers lifestyle, and he would go and like interact with these women but lie to them about who he was. And so I ended up running into this man and dating this man myself, and thank God he and I did not have like sex. And one of the experiences that we had, we was actually at a swingers party, and unfortunately, I feel like I got too close to him. You know what I'm saying? Like too close to a level of, like, I don't know, it was just too much. And had I known the degree of who he was and what he was doing, I probably wouldn't even have got to that level of, I wouldn't have got in close proximity to dude. So anyway, when I met this same guy, he told me that he had one child and that he was broken up with this one girl that he had been with like all of his life, and they had one child together. But really the truth about him was that he was married. He had been married for many, many years, and he had like 8 or 9 kids by this time, by the time I met him. Now I think he has like 12 or 15, something like that. But back then he had like 8 or 9 kids, right? But he this isn't something that he conveyed to me, and I wasn't aware he was inside of the swingers lifestyle until after I started working at like the swingers club, and I started interacting, and I started knowing the truth about who he was. And so, of course, I try not to be judgmental of the dude, but he ended up doing some more manipulative stuff to me. So anyway, a couple of other women came to me on Facebook and wanted to expose him. And they were like in this group chat, and they all had dated him, but they did not know that he was a part of this lifestyle. They didn't know that he was promiscuous. They didn't know that he was married. They didn't know he had a whole bunch of children. They didn't know any of this stuff. And so when they found out, and then they ran into each other, it was like 10 or 12 women. So they came to me and said, hey, I know you have a YouTube channel. I want you to expose this guy so he can stop like doing this to women. And so I ended up doing one video about him, and then that one video went viral. So a lot of other women that he was doing that same behavior to end up contacting me with screenshots and all types of proof that he had been like proposing to a whole bunch of women, and like making these women feel like they were going to have some type of future with him, which is a whole nother level of sociopath. It's a whole nother level of being manipulative. And so I ended up making two more videos about this dude. Now, the interesting part about that, since time has gone by, it's 2019. Okay, usually the women that he interacted with would have contacted me by now and said, "Hey, um, I've dated this guy and blah blah blah." But I'm assuming he slowed down on his activity with in regards to manipulating other women, because no women are coming to me with this foolishness anymore. It's slowed down over the years. If when it first happened, it was a whole bunch of women, and it extended on for a long period of time. I think 2017 was the last time I heard from a woman he had manipulated, because he had started doing it long ago. People who went to college with him were like, "Yo, when we was in college, he was this same guy. We told him to slow down then." And so with time, it's just been, like slowing down. And so no one has hit me up within in the past 2 years. But what's happening is people still continue to comment on this video. And the comment is like so the comments are like so interesting to me, because what people always turn around and go back to is, do any of these women factor in that STDs and promiscuity is kind of like bad for your health. And I'm trying to explain to everybody, well, I don't think these women were thinking that he was promiscuous. I think they were thinking like he was just for them and that's it. And what I want a lot of people to understand is, now not having an STD is a standard now. Now, when you start dating people, before you even have sex with these people, you got to see their papers. And I mean literally go and get like tested together. And I haven't had sex in a really long time. I haven't had sex in like a year and 7 months. It's almost been 2 years. And I'm STD free, of course. And when I do talk about my status, it's important that I express to women that this happened to me by the grace of God. Because even with the selective nature I had with the man that I was dealing with, he was promiscuous. And I was unaware of how much he was doing behind my back. So just because you're inside of a monogamous relationship, or maybe you're inside of a marriage, doesn't mean that you're safe from getting an STD or HIV or AIDS or anything like that. And so this is what I've been trying to explain to people. People think if you're single and you're sleeping around, or you're in a specific type of lifestyle, you're promiscuous, you're throwing yourself out there, you're putting yourself out there, you're definitely going to get an STD. But what you need to also understand is, if you are inside of a relationship or a marriage, you are also at risk for experiencing something like that as well, because you don't know if your partner is like that, especially when you are in areas like Atlanta. Atlanta is one of those places where there's so much promiscuity. It is ridiculous. And when I try to explain this to people, they're like, "Oh, it's like that everywhere." No, some places you don't. It's just not the culture of that place. Like each city has a different way that they handle things. They have a different standard and requirement for the people that are staying inside of that specific city or neighborhood or whatever the case is. So the behaviors of people are very, very different. So just because a city is a city doesn't mean it is running parallel with every single city that you interact with. So people try to tell me that Atlanta and Houston and Miami and all of these cities are a lot alike. And they also try to make it seem like promiscuity is something that happens all over everywhere. Where I'm currently living right now, promiscuity is like on the low list of priorities in regards to the people that are around here. Most people are married. Number one, it's not a lot of single people walking around, and it's definitely not a whole bunch of people who are walking around with broken families and broken marriages, and they have a much better level of respect in regards to relationships, other people's marriages. It's just they're very different on this side of the United States. It's just very different. But in the city of Atlanta, even with the Bay Area having a large LGBT community, even with the large LGBT community that's here, they still have another level of respect in regards to those relationships as well. It's still not as promiscuous. And the problem with Atlanta is the promiscuity, the sex. Like this, to me, the way that they are with sex, it's like a salutation there. It's like, "Hey, I like you, you're sexy, let's go fuck. And let's go do this without protection." That's how Atlanta is. Like, people aren't thinking what they're doing through. Everybody is looking nice there. The women are very, very attractive. The men are very, very attractive. And everyone is just sleeping with everyone without having any type of respect for friendships, relationships, marriages, anything like that. So when you are in a place like that, like Say, for instance, you come to Atlanta and you're married. I always tell married people, Atlanta is not a place that you want to go to if you're married. Atlanta ain't even supposed to be a place that you go to if you're single. Because if you're single and you're looking for someone to marry, that's not a place that you go and look. If you're married and you're newly married, especially, you don't want to go and um, take your new marriage to a place where people don't respect it. You don't want to have been married to somebody for X amount of years either, depending upon your age group. Because, most people who've been married for 10 years, 20 years, whatever the case is, they're a lot older. There's not a lot of young people that actually have like this marriage where they've been together a whole bunch of years. So when you have a combination of like youth and a whole bunch of people who don't respect relationships and marriages and bonds anyway, of course you're going to have a whole bunch of people that's sleeping with each other. Now, the interesting thing about the lifestyle that, when I worked at the club that I worked at, and I saw a lot of people, expressing themselves sexually, it wasn't um something that I had experienced in any other like cities I had been in. I had never seen or even heard of it until I moved to Atlanta. I had never heard of the type of lifestyles that people were having in regards to, like orgies or group sex or swapping couples or anything like that. I had never heard of anything like that. So when I got to Atlanta and I saw it and I ended up working at the club, what I noticed is it morphed into this. It went from being like this healthy thing that people who are friendly and kind do, and they have a level of respect for each other. It warped into this thing of where people was just sleeping around and being disrespectful towards each other and each other's relationships and not respecting their own bodies and protecting themselves from other people. It morphed into that because what I didn't want to convey inside of the videos that I was doing about this sexual predator was that the lifestyle that he attached himself to was an unhealthy one, to where everyone was walking around, not really caring about wearing protection. Because during the time that I was working there, like when I was working in the club where I would see all of this, sexual activity, one of the biggest things that they expressed was using protection. Like using protection was very important, and this would be something that would be announced. It would be prophylactics available for you of all sizes. I mean, it was there. So practicing safe sex was very, very important, and keeping a healthy mindset as well as an emotional set and a physical health was very important. And so for it to no longer be that way, it just morphed into that. And so the reason why it morphed into that was because of men like this one. Men will manipulate women into coming into this lifestyle and thinking that they were going to be safe and okay and real chill, and they didn't have to worry about them being disrespected or people spreading their secrets or making fun of them or anything like that. And then they would turn around and do the complete opposite after this woman is already involved. Instead of being honest about where they stood and what the situation was, come to find out women would end up being lied to about the situation because they didn't know. So this is what I was observing as I would go to I would be at the club and I would be working and I would see people I don't even know. Just people would come in with their partners and not be honest with their partner about the type of club that they're in. I've seen people get into a fight, because right there in the club because they wasn't, told the truth about the type of club that they were walking into. And it was one of those places where it was just like, what? If people would just be a little bit more honest about where they stood, then it would give people the choice of whether to deal with that person or not. And I think that's the biggest issue with the women and this sexual predator. It wasn't that he was going around being this man, because that was his choice. If he wanted to be a part of that specific lifestyle, if he wanted to swing, or if he wanted to be promiscuous or cheat or whatever it is that he wanted to do, cheat on his wife or whatever that was, that's a personal choice that you choose for yourself. But the biggest problem that a lot of women had with this sexual predator was that he wasn't very honest about what he was doing, and he wasn't very careful, because a lot of these women contacted me and said he had herpes. He was giving them herpes. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is, if you're honest about what you're doing, that'll never be a problem for a woman, because what you're doing is you're not manipulating her. You're not putting the wool over her eyes. You're not stealing her choice about whether she can deal with you or not. You know, deal with the real you. When you present yourself as something fake and something fluffy and shit, as if you have all of these amazing qualities about yourself and you're being dishonest, and someone starts falling in love with this fake phantom person that you created, that's the cruel part. That's the manipulative part that women can't stand. And so men aren't understanding this. You guys aren't getting that. That's the part that's disturbing. It's sociopathic. And trying to explain this to men that do this is really difficult because they really just don't understand. They think, you know, the person that interacted with them was the bad person. Like because they was upset when they found out who you were, or they put you on blast, or they told your secrets. They just completely forget that it was them that manipulated this woman or this person to begin with. Then you have to think about stuff like this. You have to think about homosexuality, and there's nothing wrong with a person being homosexual, right? But one of the problems that's happening in Atlanta as well is the down low. This goes back to the whole dishonesty thing. If you're not honest about your sexuality, then don't be surprised when people are mad at who you are and what you're doing, when you're being very deceptive, like when transgender people pretend as if they are have been genuinely that sex that they are their whole life. You have to be honest with people because you have to allow them choice. When you steal their choice from them, you can be put in a really really ugly place. So when you're dating now, right, make sure you're asking these people for these papers, man. Don't be so quick to just jump on some penis, like, no. um In 2018, California was on that list with Atlanta for the hotspot places. That's not it. And maybe you mean you listen. Atlanta is a city. California is a state. So, which city in California are you saying on this hot list? Because even with this hot list, when I was looking at it, Atlanta was on the top. Atlanta was on the top of this list. Miami was on this list, and I remember Los Angeles being on this list. Now I don't remember where Los Angeles was, but I'm not in Los Angeles, so you know the way that people are in Northern California is very different. Like Southern California, I'm thinking maybe San Diego. I don't even think San Diego might be like that, but I definitely could see how Los Angeles could be like that. Um, Honestly, I think that any area that is predominantly black has a high level of promiscuity, number one, and number two, a high level of sexuality popping off. I'm not gonna say homosexuality, just sexuality in general. I think Atlanta is has a high population of homosexuality. And there was a time where Baltimore was like that. Baltimore was like that when I was young. In the United States, the city of Baltimore was the place where all of the homosexuals were. So it changes over the decades. You went from Baltimore being that place to suddenly Baltimore being that place where it was like crime ridden. It was like a place where it was a lot of poverty and a lot of drugs and a lot of, that's how Baltimore was. It eventually grew into, and then Atlanta became that place where a lot of homosexuality took place. Um, Here in, like I said, here in San Francisco, right? They don't have, like, I'm in San Leandro right now. San Leandro is not, it's on the other side of the bridge. So you got San Francisco, and the Bay Area is all of the cities and surrounding it. So I'm on the other side of the bridge right now. I don't live over here. I just happen to be over here because I'm driving Uber. So I decided to take a break on this side of the bridge because I gotta drive all the way back on that side of the bridge. And so anyway, even in San Francisco, right, there aren't areas where you can just drive around. You know how in Atlanta, if you've been in Atlanta, you can go anywhere and you see a homosexual. Anywhere. I mean, a flamboyant homosexual too. Like, like anywhere. At the outskirts of Atlanta, everywhere. It's like, it doesn't matter. Marietta, College Park, Decatur, it doesn't matter where you are bound to see a homosexual person. It's not like that in San Francisco. Like, you could go, I think I've been here almost 2 years, right? I have seen, literally, I have seen a handful, maybe like five homosexual people, and three of those I've seen within the past week because we've had a gay pride parade. So when you listen, these homosexuals to even come together and come into this one city, they're really, really spread out, and you rarely see them. You rarely see them. So it's not like this big thing that they. I remember they used to say that San Francisco was a place where, it was a lot of homosexuality. It's not like that anymore. It's not like that anymore. Evidently, it's people still out here. Don't get it twisted, but it's people out here that also support LGBT. So if you was to go to a gay pride parade or something, it would be so crowded with heterosexual and homosexual people because everyone accepts everyone. This is one of those places where everyone is very, very, the majority of people, because you have crime and negative people everywhere. But majority of the people here, they're very honest, they're very open with each other. They're very respectful of friendships and family. Okay? They're very accepting of each other. And it's all about love and support and survival. Everything else is bullshit. Like no one else is caring about any of that. And so anyway, back to what I was saying, the norm nowadays needs to be when you start dating someone, okay, and a lot of people want self gratification and instant gratification, so immediately they're having sex with whoever and falling in love going off of impulse and blah blah blah. You can't really do that anymore. It doesn't matter your age. You could be 18, you could be 25, you could be 39, you could be 55. It doesn't matter your race, and it doesn't matter who you're dating. You have to be very, very careful nowadays that not only getting tested before you two to have sex, but also during the relationship, you guys need to keep up with each other's health. Because what I've noticed is no one is exempt from it. Just because you're single doesn't mean you're avoiding um, um, sexually transmitted diseases. And just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean you're avoiding sexually transmitted diseases because you never know what your partner is doing. And what I notice is people are very, very manipulative. Their partners, they're thinking their partner is all the way in, and then they come and find out that their partner hasn't been in the whole time because they're not being honest. One of the biggest things that people are having right now, the problem that they're having is a level of honesty. People aren't being very honest with each other. And so that's what the problem was with this Atlanta sexual predator guy, where they're leaving comments about from Atlanta. And if you haven't checked out this video, just go check it out. um it says it's called True Story, Atlanta's real life sexual predator. That's what it starts off with, and then you'll see it pop up, and you'll hear me tell the story about how these women all came to me and they were so hurt, and they had all this proof he had done this stuff. They wasn't just telling me the shit. They had like proof this guy was doing it, and it was really messed up because these women were genuinely hurt. It wasn't like he was some guy that tricks some women into sleeping with him. He had literally built a life with these women. Like he had literally had these women in a relationship and was seeing them on a consistent basis, giving them engagement rings and stuff like that. He literally built a life around this women. Like a lot of people say, a man who tricks women into having sex with them is not a predator. He's just, a man who's manipulated and playing games. It's the difference between having a man coming around just having a casual fling with a woman once or twice, but to sit around and go months and months and months or years on years with these women and pretend that you're going to marry them and you're going to build a future with them. You're literally wasting these women's time. Like you're literally going out here pretending to be like this husband or this soon to be husband. You're engaged, you're planning weddings and stuff like that. Like that's extreme when you're already married and you have like 9 kids. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't do nothing like that. That was really messed up. So that's what classifies the guy as a predator, not necessarily because he was manipulating women. I mean, it's not fair and it's not good to manipulate women sexually, and men do it all of the time. But just because men do it all of the time doesn't mean it's an acceptable behavior. Like a lot of people be like, oh, this happens to women all the time. Why you tripping? Because it's not something that's supposed to happen all of the time. Women being sexually assaulted or women experiencing any level of disrespect or manipulation or anything like that, abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, whatever it is. Okay, these, just because it happens often doesn't mean that it's okay and women should just get over it. No, it's still an unacceptable behavior. You understand? So that's why, when I did make the video about him, that's what it was for. And I think a lot of people felt like, oh, you must be mad and bitter. He don't want to be with you. Like, the ignorant people think that immediately. You just mad because he don't want to be with you and all this stuff. Like, I ain't even thinking about that. I remember after I posted the video initially, he found out about the video, and the video had spread so far around Atlanta. Like, people was like, knew this video, right? And they were like, really, I was like popular because of this video. And so one time I went to like this pool party, and he was there. And I was like, ugh. Like, why did this fool have to walk through the door? Of all people, like, oh, because I had been trying to like avoid him, and it's kind of hard to avoid someone like that when you're kind of in the same social circle, because I was popular, so we're sitting here and we're you know ending up in the same place. And I seen this guy two times after um I did the initial video about him, and it went viral. So the first time I saw him at a pool party. And so he had a relative, a brother, okay, a person that we know mutually. And this person came to me and said, man, listen, son, my brother wants you to forgive him, man. Just forgive him and move forward and blah, blah, blah. Guess what I said? Listen, if you've been watching me for a while, you know what the fuck I said. You know me. I was like, no, please. That is not something I'm going to be forgiving. Sorry. No, 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 no. There's no such thing as forgiveness with that. Some things you just can't forgive. I am not Jesus Christ. Okay, I am a human being. I am not I am not the one to be going around forgiving this dude for what he's done to more than one woman. Okay, he may have done something to me that could possibly be forgiven. But the fact that he's done this to a number of women, I don't think so. Listen, by the grace of God, I didn't have sex with this guy. Like, you guys don't understand. Like, because I was attracted to him, and he and I had been dating for like 2 or 3 months when I found out what was really going on with him. And I really just was like, this dude, like, really. Anyway, I seen him a second time, and that second time he didn't say anything to me, and I'm glad he didn't. I just walked off and left. I was like, I don't even want to breathe the same air as dude. And then someone tried to bring him up on YouTube before, and some YouTube mess. Ignored that anyway. I mean, I ain't got time for that. So yeah, my experiences in Atlanta were a trip. My experiences with guys, I felt like a lot of the men there, and they do this in Atlanta still to this day, a lot of the men there aren't very honest about their marriages, their relationships, or anything like that. And so I'm glad I'm out of that area. A lot of my friends who I was very, very cool and comfortable with, who were like drama free, are all leaving there. Like, we have fleed that city because it's like terrible. And I'm talking about people who have lived there for years, and we're seeing it getting worse. It's getting worse than it was. Like, I don't know how I stayed there for 17 years. I still don't understand how I managed to stay in that place for 17 years. I still don't get it. But yeah, so anyway, be careful about what you're doing with your body. Make sure you get your testing. And make sure that you require that from men. So I got some news. Me and my best friend are talking about getting married. And this is going to be interesting because it's like I've known him for such a long time. He's been my friend for such a long time. And I remember when Justice was born, people were trying to make it seem like he was Justice's father. And so now it's interesting that he and I talk about marriage, but we've talked about marriage before. He's always proclaimed me as his wife since the time I met him. I met him a really long time ago. I think I met him, I don't know. I met him a long time ago, and he would be at the swingers club with me. He would come and we would throw parties together. He did a lot of things with me, not just with that club, but we did a lot of events together. And now he owns his own club in Atlanta, and it's just like we're talking about getting married, and oh, that is so funny. So I'm thinking about it, just knowing about it, and knowing he and I will probably do it. Because, it's we just been best friends for such a long time, and why not marry your best friend? Why not marry your best friend? Um he has kids, I have kids. He has one kid. And our kids know each other. We've spent holidays together. We've spent so much time together. And so now the question is, the one thing is left over. The thing that people do first, we're doing last. Like, how people fall in love and then they get to know each other. We're doing it the other way around, to where we know each other. We know how each other are. We've seen each other be in other relationships with other people. We know each other so well. It's like we're there for each other. We care for each other. We already have, like, the amazing things that people want inside of a relationship. He and I already have. The only thing we haven't done is fell in love and had sex. And so as we sit here and we're thinking about this is actually a lot better. You know what I mean? This is better to actually do it the other way around than do it. You know, I've been friends with guys before I start dating them. Usually I'm friends with them and I date them and then I end up in a relationship with them or have sex with them. I don't usually just have sex immediately. That's just not how I operate. I like to build friendship first. And so with him, for us to have been friends for over a decade, it's like, damn, I've known you. I know who you are. I know your habits. Like, I know how he is. Like, literally, I know him. And so then the question becomes, knowing how how are we going to go through this whole motion of me knowing him as a husband or me knowing him as a boyfriend? And I said to him, if we do decide to get engaged, I want us to be engaged for a certain amount of time. And then I want for us to be to not have sex until we're married. And sometimes I wish that would I would have did that with Priest, because me and Priest knew we wanted to be together. Like, it just seemed okay. Remember, when I talk about Priest, I always talk about him from a perspective of the person that he portrayed himself to be was real. Okay, so forgive me if it seems kind of off, because I feel like I confuse people when I talk about him, because I still talk about him in a way that he was genuinely in love. So I wish that he and I would have got married first before we had sex. Like, I wish I would have literally just made the effort to push and push and push and push and push him to prove to me that he got his divorce. You understand? Because I remember I was saying to him over and over again, I would check up on him. Did you get the divorce? Did you get the papers? Is it finalized? Is it blah, blah, blah? These were conversations that we would have often. And he would kind of bird feed me, because honestly, I don't think he wanted to be divorced at the time. Or maybe he wanted to be divorced, but he, I don't know, some bullshit, right? Sit here trying to figure out. But he always portrayed himself as a person who was going to be in my life for the rest of my life. So I feel like maybe I should have married him first before I decided to have sex with him at all. I mean, even our first sexual experience was difficult. But that's why I'm doing that with my best friend. I don't want to, number one, do this in a way that might be out of order. Like, to me, I feel like each couple gets to decide their order of operations in regards to their marriage and relationship. But I think for me, I would prefer if I'm already married to him. And that's another thing that I'm concerned about, is getting pregnant again. Like, if in the event that I get pregnant again, I want to already have my husband. I don't want to be sitting here with a third baby daddy. Like, it's bad enough I have fucking two. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's another reason why I was, like, really pissed at Priest. And I tell his family that all the time. Like, when I talk to his family, I was like, one of the biggest things that bugs me about this entire thing is that he actually put me in a position to have a second baby daddy. You know what I'm saying? Like I hadn't had this conversation with him so many times during our relationship that I didn't want a second baby daddy. If I was going to have a baby, it was going to be with my husband. You know, and I said this to Priest over and over. But, you know, I just don't want to have another child um thinking I'm about to marry someone, and then something happens and then we don't get married, and I'm sitting here with three baby daddies and then taking care of two little kids alone. You know what I'm saying? I'm just not trying to get back into that thing. So of course I don't have to explain that to my best friend, because my best friend is like, listen, if you wanna, I mean, I don't care, as long as you know, like, whatever, you know, if we gonna be together, let's do it. You know, that's the type of person he is. He like, once he's in, he's in. And I've noticed that in his previous relationships, like once he's in the relationship, he's in the relationship. And here's the interesting part about the women that he's been with. The women that he's been with are the ones that screwed up the relationship. Can you believe that? Like, it hasn't been him. Like, I think his first relationship, he kind of screwed that up because he was young and stupid. And then after that, it's kind of like he learned his lesson. And so every single relationship he's been in after that, they have been really like bad for him. And I would be looking at him like, why do you keep choosing these bad women? And then I would meet them and oh, this is really not like somebody you should kick it with. And so, and then he'd be saying to me the same the same thing. So, you know, I think we should have just been together a long time ago, but we have to grow in a lot of different ways. So anyway, I gotta go. I'm going to finish driving Uber, and then I'm gonna go home. I'm a little tired. I haven't been feeling well for the past couple of days. I'm a little under the weather. Um, Number one, my leg, the injury that I got from giving birth, that is just, whew, okay. That pain right there is number one. Number two, I'm a little like um just tired from my woman time. When I come on my woman time, my body gets very, very different. I get very, very tired. I get very, very like I feel bad. Like my migraines are worse. And you know, when it's that feminine time, when it's that lady time, it's like I get different. You know, I just really don't feel good. And I was thinking about going to the doctors for it because I don't have like a regular cycle. You know, I have like this cycle where I'm so exhausted. I mean, literally, like, I don't want to do nothing but sleep. And if I could, I would sleep the entire time. And it's times where I've come on my feminine time and I've literally slept through the whole thing. And the way that my flow is, and I think I was said this before, my flow is very severe. Like, it's a severe flow. Like, first of all, it starts off slow and then it pours. I'm like, oh my God. And then it's only like 3 days. 2 days I'm pouring, and then suddenly it stops. And it's just like, why is my cycle like that? Is it supposed to be longer? So I'm thinking about going to the doctors. I'm concerned about fibroids. I'm concerned about, you know, maybe something happened during my pregnancy. Because, you know, my pregnancy was like this, like, miracle. You know what I mean? Like, it happened. Like, it wasn't supposed to go that way. Um, the way that, I mean, I have been literally trying for years to have babies and I just could not. And I've listed things before, and when I went to my doctor and I'm like, I'm pregnant, and I told him my history, he was like, I can't even believe you're pregnant. Like, I'm like, and he was like, you're basically like healed. And so when I had Justice, my doctor even gave me birth control. He was like, you're probably gonna end up pregnant again. I was like, I'm sorry, no, I'm not, never doing this again. Mm, mm-mm. No, thank you. And it wasn't the birth that was hard. It was my pregnancy. My pregnancy was really hard. Like, my pregnancy did a lot to my body, and so I was sick the whole pregnancy, and I lost a tremendous amount of weight. And now I've gained that weight back because now I can eat, you know. And it's been a year since I've given birth, and now my body is finally starting to go back to normal. Just, you know, my weight and stuff like that, like, you know, my cravings for certain foods are gone, and I'm starting to want to go back to the way that I was, but then I have to deal with my feminine time. My feminine time is so off. And my mother's like, well, sometimes when you have babies, the lining of your uterus still stays thick and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, she's see professional about this because I can't trust what you saying. You the same woman that came into my room in the middle of the night and told me why I shouldn't take Justice to a petting zoo. You just woke me up in the middle of the night, okay? Like a creepy stalker coming walking through my doors, and you got the hall light on, so the light is shining through you, and you're like a creepy, weird stalker person, and you came in there in the middle of the night to tell me to not take Justice to a petting zoo, and then I ask you why, and you say something about bacteria. Like that's not something I already know. Like my mother is one of those people that burst out of the nowhere with useless information. Like one time I was sitting down in the living room and I don't have any living room furniture. Yeah, I don't know why I haven't furnished my house. I just haven't sat down long enough to furnish it. I'm going to do it, I promise, but I'm rarely there. So anyway, I'm sitting in my living room, minding my business on the floor, playing with Justice with some toys, and my mother just bursts into the living room slowly. I think you shouldn't blow your nose when people are eating. Like, why are you telling me that right now? Like, number one, I'm not eating. Number two, I'm not blowing my nose. So why are you coming to tell me that? She was like, because I just think it's nasty. I'm like, have you seen me blow my nose while you're eating? She was like, no. I was like, well, why? Like telling me this right now. That's the type of thing that my mother will be thinking of some outlandish shit that has nothing to do with what you two are discussing or whatever is happening around her. And she'll just burst out of nowhere. Like, unicorns shit Skittles. And you're like, why are you telling me this? Like, what? How is this information helping me right now? So that's my mom. That's why I don't want to trust what she's saying. I'd rather seek a professional. So anyway, I'm tired. That's the point was I'm going to go and finish driving, and then after I finish driving around San Leandro, I'm gonna take it back home because I am really tired. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all later on. All right, have vision and stay focused, y'all. Make sure you check out my other live streams and my other uploads. Okay, have vision and stay focused. Namaste.